Hello, welcome to Sterling Armory Sword Talk. This is episode 276,102, I think. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. If you're new to Sword Talk, basically we're just a bunch of nerds who like to drink a lot of drink and talk about swords, and we are also sword makers as well. Oh, I forgot to turn the music down. So we have a fun topic today. It's a hot topic, I think, in the sword community, at least on the social media platforms. So we're going to dive into that in a bit. But let's bring on our other crew today. Hey!
Hey, how's it going, man?
From his new cave.
Live from Arizona.
Yay! Oh, actually, I asked... So yeah, we're now in 3 different time zones, right? Because it's daylight savings in Arizona and Salt Lake are not in the same time zone now, right?
Correct. Yep, they're an hour ahead of us at the moment.
That's gonna be fun to. Oh, is that why Colton's sleeping right now?
He's an old man, so 9:30 checks out.
Yep. Awesome. So yeah, real quick, my name is Chris. I make a lot of blades and drink a lot of drink. And so we run Sterling Armory. I'm in Florida, Tampa, Florida. And then Josh is out there now in Arizona. And so the Sword Talk is, if you're new to the channel, the Sword Talk is all sorts of topics ranging on all things covering swords, from film to martial arts to museum stuff and everything in between. And today's topic is going to branch kind of the in between, right? So it'll be good. Josh, you want to give a quick intro?
I'm Joshua Von Warbear. You can find me on Facebook at Joshua Von Warbear or Instagram. You can find me at Warbear_Armory, or you can Venmo me or PayPal me or
yeah.
I don't. You know what? I don't remember what any of those handles are. Figures.
Oh, I forgot too. So Chris and Sterling Armory you can find on Facebook, and you can find all of us on Facebook. We have a couple of other guys who aren't with us today. Colton, we haven't seen Thomas in a while. Hopefully Thomas can join us soon, but he's been busy doing a lot of stuff. And we're also on Instagram, and apparently you can link the two, Instagram and Facebook, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. And if you found us here, obviously you found our YouTube channel. I guess you want to, how's the new place?
It's pretty awesome.
We grew there too already, right? In Phoenix, for in terms of HEMA and all sorts of stuff.
It's pretty wild. The move has been harsh and vicious. What you call it? Sorry, I'm zipping that in. There we go. The move's been a little crazy. It was, Utah is a challenge out of. Like, I used to think Florida was a challenge to get out of because it's Florida and it's usually vortexes and sucks everyone back in eventually. And Utah, I loved Utah. I think Utah is great, except for the winter. It's so cold and deceitful and painful, and oh God. And I, as a warbear, I get in hibernation mode whenever it gets cold. I want to, like, if I see snow, my body just starts aching, and it's like, where's that space heater? Go sit in front of it and don't even think about going down to the garage and getting any work done. Too cold. So I went back and started packing my gear. That was a challenge, man. Just being in the highest degree was like 45 degrees, 48 degrees, which isn't super bad, with a hoodie on. But, when it starts snowing or sleeting and raining, which it was, and like 30 degrees, then it was like, ugh,
I don't know how you
this is painful. I called in a few favors from a few friends. It was just like, hey, it was a crisscross between calling in favors, like, hey, man, you want to come? I'll buy you food. And, hey, I don't want to move this. It's for free right now. You can have this. Or, this sword is too heavy. It is for sale now for this amount of dollars. And if you buy it now, I will bring it to your house. So, yeah. But yeah, now that I'm down here, it's great. Phil and his son came, Phil Martin, good guy. Him and his son came and helped me move the bigger ticket items.
Did you get
Up the
everything?
stairs.
All your tools set up and everything? I
Oh
forgot to
yeah,
ask you that
the garage. The garage was the first thing I set up for a workshop.
earlier.
Yeah, and
I'm
I love it,
impressed.
man. I spent like half a day in there just sitting on a stool going,
Space, you got space compared to your old
yep.
shop, right?
Oh, get this, man. I'm gonna do a tour on the next Sword Talk,
Oh, that'd be
maybe.
cool. Yeah.
I've got not only a wall of my tools, but a second wall of my tools, and then a free floating table and enough space to do something else in the corner. I might put a dance floor in. I don't know. But there's enough room in there to do quite a lot of awesome stuff with. I'm
Yeah.
building some shelves to keep the leather like dust free or whatnot. But I might even hold classes in the shop. So if you're in Phoenix, Arizona, and you want to learn how to do leather and make a dagger or a sword, I'll keep you posted.
That would be awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think yours is a bit bigger than my garage, right?
yeah, it's a 2.5 car.
Nice. That's sweet. That's awesome.
Oh, it's so nice. I don't know. Now that I'm spoiled with having a garage that size, like this past place I lived in, it was a 1-car garage, and it was my first workshop. It worked, and it was beautiful. As is, the deal when you start putting in anything has storage or anything is a tabletop kind of deal. I made it work. It was great. But now that I have a 2.5-car garage or 2-car garage, whatever, oh man, it's so nice. I'm like, oh, I went to Home Depot and I bought a compressor and I bought a couple other things. And I'm like, you know what? I got room for this now. I might get a lathe and a table saw up in there.
Yeah.
Fancy fields.
Yeah.
Phil helped me, which was great. Thanks, Phil. Love you. I'm surprised he didn't, have to call the ambulance. And so the tap on the washer, washer and dryer type situation. The hot and the cold. The hot works. The cold, the tap is busted, and I didn't know that. So when I turned both of them off and went to unscrew the brass caps, the heat came off fine, and then I turned the hose to the washer, and then the other one, I was like, it's still making some noise. Turn it, maybe it's just air in the pipes, and I took it off and got a face full of just straight water pressure, unstoppable water pressure, and a brass cap in my face, and then started like trying to put the cap back on it while it's just spraying me in the face. And
Thanks.
Phil, being the genius he is, ran out and turned off the main. So, and I was surprised, like he chose to turn off the main instead of just start filming me. Waterboarding myself like a gonad.
Right. Yeah.
Can you imagine if I drowned in Arizona? What an idiot! There can't be a lot of people that drown in Arizona every year, and I would have been probably the first, and they would have built a statue of me in someplace terrible.
Hey, it's always going to be known for something.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
But yeah. So Phil,
we got that fixed.
Say what?
Did you get that fixed?
Yeah. Well, Phil turned off the main, so once that happened, we just threw towels down, and then I screwed it on, and he turned the main back on. We're all good.
Okay.
I did let the housing. You can see there's also a giant hole right there above my front door.
Yeah.
That's so creatures can drop out at me in the night.
Oh.
So that's why I've got it in frame in case something just slowly starts descending from it.
So what you do with that though is, if you ever have anybody over, you can set something up so when they open the door, like something
it just falls on them. Yeah, like I can get a spider on a pulley, but with like a big sex toy glued to it.
There we go. Perfect.
So if they look up, they better not have their mouth open. You know what I mean? Oh my god! Oh, touch my face.
You gotta
it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Phil also took a shine to the Xiphos types and
awesome.
Take it home and fall in love with it. And he put an edge on it. And would you believe that sucker is like, I think 2 pounds 2 ounces, 2 pounds 3 ounces, something like that.
Yeah, which one was it? Because you had a couple of those, right?
Yeah. It's one of the wheel pommel ones with the rounded grip.
Awesome.
So we're probably going to be doing some cutting with that this Saturday. So I'm really
Yay!
excited.
You have your one mat then?
I gave away the one mat
Oh,
to
you
Chad when I
Awesome.
left as like a going away man friend present. And then I, on my porch, found two of them that I ordered off of Amazon a year and a half ago and then just left it. So now I'm up to two. So that's something.
The Amazon ones are really easy to cut, so they're different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I figure I'd start off with the easy ones.
But they're almost so Phil will have a bunch of mats. Hopefully you guys can
Yeah.
use it
Yeah.
as well. Well, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see all the stuff that's going to happen out of Arizona. I think it's going to be very cool.
It's going to be great. I'm already in love, and I never want to leave. But I am drinking Red Bull tonight. Sponsor us. Red Bull would be nice if you send us free Red Bulls, and maybe some some health insurance in case I have a heart attack from drinking.
Did you get your cup from Colton?
Colton never gave me the cup or the shirt.
Oh man,
that sack of rats! Oh my god!
We're gonna have to yell at him then. So I'm drinking actually a white wine today, but it's a Sterling white wine. So another sponsor, if you want to sponsor us. Sterling wine's even spelled the same. So yay! I need something to cool off because I've been in the shop all day, and it is hot here in Florida right now. So speaking of that, though, I'm just about done. I've had two customs that have been going on a long time. And almost done. One's just should be done probably the next day or so. The other one hopefully will be done either over the weekend or next week. But it'll be nice to get those done and away. I'm sure the customers are really excited to get them because it's been a bit. And then after that, I have two blades I'm doing for the Royal Armories, which are going to be cool. The heat treat blanks should be in pretty soon. And then just making loads of stuff for the next event.
Oh yeah.
There's an event in Washington.
What is the next event?
Comeback Con, I think.
Oh, unless we do Evermore, which will start in May. But now that I'm out here and you're out there, and Colton has a job like a nerd, yeah, we might not be able to do Evermore for which is a shame because I love doing mythos and lore out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. If it's not Evermore, Combat Con's the next one.
Yeah, so I would I think start making blades for Combat Con. But also there's another human tournament in Washington State, and it's a month prior to Combat Con. I don't know.
Oh, is that the one Gus will be at?
I think so, possibly. So yeah, it's the one that we were invited to from a couple of the I'm blanking on names right now. I've been in the heat too long today, I think. But yeah, we were invited by a couple guys when we were at the California event.
Yeah, SoCal.
Yeah, it might be. There you go, SoCal. I don't know why I could think of that. So yeah, it might be fun to head up there and see. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind checking out the Sasquatch State.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been there. My dad's from there, so it'd be cool to see.
Same. I mean, same. I've never been there. My dad was not from there.
That'd be a little weird. Wait a minute, who's your dad?
Right. Wait, your grandpa worked at NASA too? What'd yours do?
So the topic of today, though, is an interesting one. So I think in the sword communities, so if you're following us on YouTube, hopefully
interesting, but it's also a hot topic.
Hopefully you're also on the sword communities on social media. And mainly the ones that I'm on are on either on Facebook or actually I think that's about it. It's just Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then I guess, and then sword forums and like sword buyers guide and stuff. But yeah, there's a pretty hot topic right now, and people on all sides. But I kind of wanted to look at it from a maker's point of view because I think, I guess some folks who have responded to it in a big way are makers as well, but makers from Poland or Czech Republic. So yeah, I wanted to look at a couple pieces historically versus modern. So the big topic is, um, are the modern expectations of swords, especially European medieval swords, um, well beyond what historical swords actually are? If that makes sense, am I saying that right?
Or in like peasant terms, perfection. What the shit is it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And why?
Yeah. So, what our ideas are of a good sword today, does that equal what a good idea of a sword is back in the day? And there's a lot of things that have like, so I think what's driving this is, aside from customers being not happy with certain aspects of blades, I think some sword reviewers tend to focus on things that may not be important in terms of well, at least what makers think are important in
Sure.
terms of European swords. But again, there's a couple. I think we've addressed this before in an older sword
Yep.
talk when it came up, but it is a
Yeah.
hot topic again, so we kind of wanted to dive into it again. So real quick, what we're going to do is, well, I guess Josh, you want to look at the historical pieces first? Or you want to talk about some modern pieces first?
I'd say let's do historical. Let's start with the past and then
Okay.
move forward.
Sounds good. So we have some images, and I don't remember who posted some of these, but these are a lot of historical pieces, some of which I've actually seen in person, some of which are in other museums from Germany that I haven't been to yet. But so each of these show kind of a hot button item in terms of sword production and sword quality. So this one, what we're looking at here, this is historical type 18, and the guard. So this is one of the kind of hot button issues here. There's a gap between the guard and that blade, and hopefully your screen can pick that up. I know it's not a clear image, but
Yeah.
if you look at the center of the blade where the ridge is, in order to get the blade through that guard slot, you have to have a pretty beefy guard slot that's going to be sloppy on the rest of the blade. So it's a big gap there. And in a lot of historical pieces I've seen, there is large gaps between the guard and the blade. And the way it's fitted is either compression fit from the back, which keeps it from moving, or it's actually filled with some sort of pitch or some sort of glue or something.
Right.
And yeah, in terms, so if you were to see that on a modern sword, some reviewers would say that's a bad guard fit. That's not good. And they would actually knock the maker for having a poorly fit guard. So,
Right.
so if you were, so I guess the problem is if somebody were to ask for a recreation of this piece exactly, then I mean you have to recreate that guard slot, right?
Right. Yeah. Flaws
but
and
a
all.
good,
If you want a perfectly historic reproduction,
right,
it has to be captured in all of its pros and cons.
right,
And
yeah,
cons, of course, used in air quotes.
right. Now, the grip, you can probably see the grip and the pommel are also slightly crooked. That
Yeah.
could be, I think that could be ladder damage. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was made that way. It could have been
Sure.
straight and got dinged or bent at some point in history. But really the big thing here is that guard slot. What's also,
Right.
it's really hard to tell here, but the guard itself is not symmetrical at all. The left
Right.
quillion is a bit longer than the right quillion, and you can't really tell from this angle, but the left quillion curves up more than the right, and that could also be damaged from mishandling.
Right.
So it may not be original, but the length isn't damaged. Right? That had to be there from the beginning. So
Yeah.
so we're going to look at a couple guard slots actually to start with, because that's one of the bigger issues that I think is a big misconception for modern swordmaking.
And it's also like something where if you placate one, it ruins the other. And I remember a maker talking about this very similar thing where a reviewer or a customer was looking at it and says it has a gap between the guard and the shoulder of the blade. They didn't like that, and then the maker was saying, well, I mill down my slot, or another maker was saying he mills a slot much like what I do for a ditch for the sword to fit into, so it creates a perfectly flat for the blade to sit onto. Now, of course, if your shoulders aren't perfectly or like a flush, that's going to sit a little bit this way or that way depending. However, like I'm saying with the original point, If you do that and it leaves a nice flat surface, you still have someone that's going to complain that that ditch that you've made into the material for the cross isn't pinched onto the blade, and therefore it's still not touching it,
Right.
not being very cohesive on it.
And
But
some would say it looks machined.
right, yeah,
Yeah, that's a quote. So I used to do that as well quite often. And that was the biggest complaint I got is people would look at that guard slot that's milled and they would say, "Hey, that looks machined. Can you make
right.
it look more original?" I was like, "Well, I can, but you're probably not going to like that either." um, so, so the other guard gap. This is what we see historically, very common, where
Yeah,
it almost looks like if you were to equate this to something modern day, and companies like Deltin really capture this well, and I think what they do is kind of how I would do it if I were to copy that. Is that basically they mill their guard slot where the tang they go through, and then for the blade shoulders, they actually take an angle grinder and
yeah,
slot in like a groove. And if you were to look at that and not know it wasn't made by an angle grinder, you know, you'd think it would be, right? That's how it's
right.
the easiest way to do that. And I've done that a few times. I'm just not a fan of the look, even though it is very historical. Um,
It also comes off as looking like from like the original. Historically, it looks like a sandwiched guard.
yeah,
Um,
agreed, right? So two pieces
yeah,
that were maybe forged welded together, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's quite. I don't want to say it's common, but I do know that some pieces were done that way.
right,
And also, when you're historically swaging out your guard slot via forge, and you're forging that guard slot open, that can also be that's pretty common that it'll look like that.
right,
And I mean, who knows? In terms of manufacturing techniques, were these guards that we're looking at here, were they just generic guards being made by somebody else, and then somebody else, grabbed them and put them on this blade? Because again, historically, most swords are not made by one person. You had the blade maker, then you had a hilt maker,
right,
and so the hilt maker could have already had guards and pommels laying around, and he just fit them to the blade. So that,
right.
that could be another issue. Um, so yeah, if you were making guards that way back then, you might just have a general guard slot up to a certain blade width, and then every blade will fit, right? So this is another version of that. This time this one's the one that looks a bit more forge welder, right? Because the two pieces come together pretty fine.
Right.
Yeah, it's very common on historical pieces. So if you're up at the Met in New York, or if you're at the Royal Armories in Leeds, or Chicago at the what's that name of the museum? I'm blanking on the Art Gallery Museum in Chicago that has a bunch of blades. All of theirs show these types of guards, which is pretty cool to see. Here's another one very similar to what we just saw.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we jump to so here's one where the guard itself, the slot itself isn't too wide, but now it's overall just too big for the blade, right?
Right. Yeah.
It looks like it's too big. So this would be a modern piece. I think a customer would say that guard's not fit right to the sword. But historically, that's quite common. And what keeps that from rattling in use is when the grip was intact. The grip had pressure on it from the pommel and the peen, pushing everything and compressing everything together. And there could have been a glue or a pitch or something in there. So there was a question of, is there gaps there now because the materials have corroded? And I will say, in terms of corrosion, you wouldn't see gaps like that. That had to be original. When corrosion happens in this environment with that sort of setup, the pieces would actually fuse together, most likely. So you wouldn't see the gapping.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty clear example. So
Definitely.
I like the shape of that pommel, by the way. I think it's pretty cool. And then, so speaking of pommels, I think the next one dives to pommels. Yeah, so
Oh yeah.
We've had a couple of these where I haven't had one.
Transition isn't so smooth.
Yeah, where the transition, like especially if your leather wrap is slightly off, it looks like it lumps to one side, even though your
Right.
handle is straight. And
Yep.
I think that's what's happening here. Although I do wonder if that's the original grip wrap. It looks like it is, but I can't
Right.
say for sure. I don't know if you can tell, but can you look closely at those shoulders of the blade?
Yeah, they're raised up like 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters
Yeah,
above the cross.
that's why I question if that's the original grip. Um,
Right.
it may not be, but I have seen original pieces that do have gaps like that on the shoulders.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, this is the original piece. This is actually a quite high-end original piece as well, due to all the gold inlays on it and
Hmm.
all the gold filigree. So I don't recall who they think this is attributed to, but it's like a famous duke or duchess or something, or not duchess, duke or um, baron or something like that. Um, so here's one. I was talking with Warbear offline earlier. So when I do my handles, I actually this looks like the pommel slot is way too big for the tank. And this is actually what I do on on all my normal blades, but that slot is not intended for the tang. That slot's intended for the grip. And there's actually some pieces of wood still left there. Now it looks like it's way offset right now, and yeah, it does look like that. But that's just because of age, and it's the piece of wood that was on one side is gone, and it's kind of slumped over in the museum right now. But yeah, the original grip is what pressed into that gap in the pommel, and that's how I do mine today. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. Although that tang you can see it dropped in thickness pretty quick. So
Yeah.
I don't drop mine that quickly, but it depends on the blade shape. So that was a cool example, I think, and that's also very common from the pieces that I've personally looked at.
Right.
Now on this one, so this is another pommel issue, and I do see it on a lot of original blades. However, I think we have to be careful that we don't know if it's so I think this one we can say was originally made this way. What I'm talking about is the pommel itself is slightly crooked, and you see that a lot on original pieces. However, my big however is I think a lot of them might be due to mishandling over the hundreds of years that they've been in existence. Because you got to remember, original blades, their tangs are usually almost pure iron or very soft, and they're actually quite easy. If you were to step on this in a field, or say the guard got stuck and you twisted it, you could actually easily misalign your pommel, and then you can twist it back. However, this one though, because if you look at the grip, which is original, I believe, everything's all lined up. So I don't think this is from damage. I think it was originally made that way.
Right.
That's a really cool piece, by the way. I've actually got a chance to hold that one. It's that hologram blade is wicked.
It looks like the grip is really comfortable in hand.
It is. Yep. Yeah, it's very cool. I believe that one's at the Wallace collection right now. I believe. Or I'm mixing that up with another one. I think that's the one at the Wallace. And then, so next one, same thing.
Whoa.
This is Oakshot's favorite blade. I believe this is the one that's up with Arms and Armor right now. So again, the pommel is slightly crooked. But
Misaligned,
again, I don't know if that's original, because I mean that could have been damaged from handling at some point in its history. I'll actually have to ask. Excuse me, Craig and Nelson. Nelson, Craig and Nathan, if I can talk right. If what they think, if that was damaged after the fact or if it was originally done that way.
Yeah, if you mentally draw a straight line from peen to sword tip, all kinds of things are scawampus on that.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, everything. Holy crap.
Yeah. It's a really light, flat blade, though. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So here's some other ones where the pommels seem to be way off. I do think the one on the left is damage from use at some point, or from, again, mishandling or whatever. The one on the right, though, I don't think that's from damage, because you can't physically move the pommel on the tang, right? I'm pretty sure it was originally made that way, where it's slightly off. The one thing that could have happened is if they ever retouched the pommel and they just took too much off of the right side of that pommel, it would make it look weird. But I'm pretty sure that's the original. Is that? No, we got. So this is an interesting one. So this one gets actually brought up a lot, and I think we might be looking at this possibly the wrong way. So this is not a solid pommel. This is a hollow pommel with a lot of filigree work, and that damage looks like it might have been squished at some point. So originally this could have been a lot straighter. I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but just looking at it and knowing it's a hollow pommel, I mean, there's a chance that, it could have got dropped like right on its beam block, and that damage could happen. So I don't know if that's the case. It could have been originally made that way. But yeah, it's hard to say.
Right.
I will say that, there are a lot of original pieces that are this fancy that are definitely not straight. So yeah, I think that's our last one. So if you're watching the video, think about all these imperfections, and all of these are very common, and some we didn't even talk about are like the ridge lines down the center of the blades. That's a big one too. Like, they're not always straight. They're wavy, and then the flatness of the blade, how smooth it is, it's also a little wavy. And all these things are true on original pieces. So when customers want perfection or want something more than that in a medieval sword, is that asking too much? Now, I will say the customers have a great point of view as well, and a great point saying, don't use medieval blades sloppiness as an excuse for your own sloppiness, which is very true. So,
Sure.
yeah, that's not what we want to do. But,
some sloppiness is unavoidable. It just kind of like,
right.
It happens.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last time. So what I like doing, I think I can put a pretty darn straight line on my guards and on my blades. But sometimes I look at it and I think, and this is honestly now, especially when I used to mill my tapers before I ground them. But now everything's ground. And when I'm grinding or when I'm working on a piece, if it looks too machined, I go back over it by hand a bit more to make it look more hand done. Because I personally like that look. I think if it looks too machined, that takes it. That kind of pulls me out of the feel of the sword, if that makes sense. So, like some people say Albions look too machined. I've seen some that maybe you could say that for, but for the most part, I don't. So I do. I talked to Angus about this, and he knows. So Angus trim blades look machined, rightly so, because that is what he does, and he's really good at it. So I'm not a fan of that aesthetic, but I love his blades just because of the way he approaches that, and it's his thing, and he's well known for it.
Right.
But he's not trying to say it's it's not a replica of a historical piece. So
right.
So yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any. So I have my own one. Gotta be careful because I sharpened this guy. He's been used a bunch, but this is, I think, one of the last ones that I actually milled that slot in for the guard. Can you see that?
Yep.
So I don't know if you can see on the other side. One side's
So one side's more snug.
Yeah. So the guard is slightly offset because I was rushing when I made my own blade. But that was, I think, one of the last ones I milled. In terms of milling for the shoulders, I always mill for the tang, but the shoulders I now I hand file out or hand grind out with the Dremel.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people would look at that and say that looks gross. So, and I get it. So
it doesn't change the function. Function-wise, it's still fine. It's more of an aesthetic grievance.
Can you see the edge on that or no? Or the
I see a little bit of an edge on it.
Yeah, and there's a slight wave in it.
Yeah.
Very slight. So, yeah. So what is, from a maker's point of view, I think we still try to make blades as to the best of our ability. And I know, so there's different points of view, like if folks coming from a knife background, requirements and qualities of knives are very different than swords. It's like, for
Right.
instance, a high-end knife, you're not going to see any gap between your guard and your blade. It should look as like one piece, and that's a standard that's, the American Blades Society has pushed a lot of really high standards for knives, but
Yeah.
that's not historical medieval swords at all. They're very, very different. So if you're a knife reviewer and then you pick up a medieval sword and review it, you're going to look at it from a very different point of view.
When I make my swords, I embrace the imperfection and I let people know right away. Like, I promise you, I will never. It's it's always going to have some kind of flaw or imperfection. It's not going in. If I make a sword where that flaw reduces the usability of it, I generally will call myself on it and sell it at a discount with that in mind. Like, it's a good costume sword that can take a beating, as opposed to one that's collector's perfect.
Just remember that I have a good example. So this is not set on yet because the grip is still curing at the moment. But you can see, if I don't crash into things, I think you can see the gap in that pommel there.
Yep.
So yeah, so the blade or the grip will inset in, and then the pommel's not totally on yet. So the pommel, there we go. That probably would have been a lot easier. So
there you go.
The pommel will actually slot. It's slotted for the tang, but it's also slotted for the grip. So it'll go over the grip, and the grip goes into the pommel a little bit. So that's just like, the original piece I showed. So that's something I do, but I think I'm one of the few makers who does that. Most people, I don't think, do that.
Like, keeping in mind how people on social media, critics and reviewers, like, they'll get a sword and they'll just basically disassemble it with a review and a critique and just kind of, this is what it's like. Do you think that back in the old days when, a duke or, a lord would commission a sword and then he gave them one, do you think the duke was like, the pommel's crooked and the cross is off, and you know what, there's wavy blades? Or do you think they were like, wow, that looks really good, and then later we're like, kill that guy and his family?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. That's just a big unknown. I ask myself that all the time. I wonder if there's any historical record of anything like that. Because I'm sure at some point,
definitely no surviving tweets.
Somebody was not happy with
Instagram posts. I would love to read that script or the scroll of like them accounting how much of a bullshit that guy was, because he made a sword that like was clankety and broke at the first battle. Like, I would love to read. We should probably write one of those. I think that would be hilarious.
Oh, I do want to, speaking of that, I do want to talk about, so I've seen some common misconceptions out there on what equals quality. So the first thing I saw was folks were thinking that if a blade is CNC'd, then it's automatically going to be perfect with no grind marks or anything like that.
False.
And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not how CNC works. So like even Albion and even Gus, after they CNC their blades, they still have to go over them by hand to hand finish them. Because Josh, you saw a Bayer CNC blade.
Yeah,
it doesn't look good. You have to go back over and clean off all the CNC marks.
Right. Yeah. And saying it looks good maybe not be fair. It definitely has the tool marks, the striations. Like, as an aesthetic of a technological sword, like if it were a sword-like object from the future kind of deal, I'd think the striations look kind of cool.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's just from a different aesthetic. But yeah, you're right. It'll have striations, much like something 3D printed would still have the striations. You still have to go in and polish that out, clean that out, soften it up, smooth it out. You still have to lay hands on it. And then it being CNC'd doesn't erase any of the blemishes that are inside the structural material of the steel,
Right. Well, and
lending it to your point, CNCs don't make, CNCs do not make or break, do not make a sword great or not.
Right. Yeah, they're not a magic button.
Right. there's
I think a
several
lot of people
underlying
think they are.
factors.
And I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that, like, even if a blade is done on CNC, no blade today you can say is machine made because they're still all handmade at the end of the day
Right.
because there's so much handwork that goes into it. So that was one thing. Another thing is I think I saw a couple comments where they thought having a press fit guard on a blade could weaken the tang area and the shoulder area because it induces a stress there. Basically a constant preload. I don't know if that makes sense. But basically constant stress on the blade at the tang because it's pressed on. And I'm an engineer. That's my job, mechanical engineering. so that preload doesn't, in terms of stress on the blade, sometimes that can actually help. So when you make an impact with the sword edge, your stress is now a bending stress, not a compressive stress. So having a preload in that joint can actually help, but it also can hurt too. Basically, you just got to make sure that you're not overly preloading that joint, and it's really hard to do that with a softer guard and a hardened steel blade. So what's actually going to happen is, say you have a cast guard, a mild steel guard, or a stainless guard like I use, or brass or bronze. When you press it on, the softer material is going to creep out eventually. So it'll still be press fit, but very little stress in that joint. So I think people don't realize that either. So there was a couple other ones that were a little kind of oddball comments, but those are the two that I remembered. So yeah, and the big comment I made, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, was I think, and even going back in history, a sword, it's a piece of artwork, and as with any art, the more time you put into it, the more time you have to perfect it.
Oh, sure.
Every single piece we make is on a schedule, needs to get done, either for ourselves or for somebody else, and we don't have unlimited time to put into it. So at some point, we have to say, okay, it's good enough for the price that we want to sell it for. And I think that's true historically as well. Now, historically, it's probably worse, right? Because they need to get shit done for hundreds of people and armies. Like, hey, we need this much now. And governments mandated that makers had to make a certain amount of blades, and they were trying to get stuff out quick.
Right.
And
whereas now you'd send an angry email. Back then, they would just knife you.
Exactly right. So I mean, everybody's on a schedule and a time commitment. So at some point, you have to say enough's. It's good enough. And one of the things I think about when I collect pieces for myself is. And the reason why I like collecting pieces from my favorite makers is I think of that as a piece of art that's a chunk of their lives put into that piece.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's true for every kind of art piece. And sorry if I'm talking too much throughout this whole video, by the way. Feel free to chime in and put me up anytime.
I'm only good for comedic relief anyway. So I'll say some good stuff every now and again. I like to hold it back because it's way more effectual if I say something smart. I don't do it. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Did you pick that up?
Yeah. Have you seen any weird comments or anything like that you wanted to address?
Oh, so many, but I don't remember them all. Like the internet is a hot pit of one side arguing over the other side, trying to convince the other side they're right and they're wrong, the other's wrong. So I read it for a quick, that's an interesting point on both sides. All right, on with my day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's usually the same arguments over and over again. It's someone saying that this sword is crap because the aesthetic isn't there, even though the rudimentary aspects are still. And then the other part is just, you're a fool. It's still fine, but that's the problem is you're arguing personal personal opinion and validations. Like you, just because you think that's what it is, doesn't mean that's what someone else is going to believe or think. It's totally a personal perspective. Yeah. So at some point, you either have to move on or just accept that's what's going to happen. I find that true in a lot of aspects.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I think the biggest it's not really an answer, but the biggest thing to help the whole communication between makers and customers is more communication, right? So
Yeah.
if there, I try to, when I sell a piece or when I talk about a piece, especially in person, I try to say, hey, like, this piece is priced this way because this, like good
Right.
parts
Yeah.
and possibly bad parts as well. And I have no problem
Yeah.
being open about all those.
Same.
And I've discounted, I think you mentioned earlier, yeah, I've discounted pieces where I'm like, well, I'm not quite happy with this piece, this part of this piece, so I need to knock some
Right.
off for that. So
Yeah. And like seeing like what you were saying about the pitch and the adhesives being used as filler stuff, that like to like way back in the day, like whenever I'd make a sword and the pommel didn't sit just right,
JB
I'd
Webb.
fill it full of epoxy resin.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it meant either my mill was off 2 degrees, so I get a misaligned pommel that's seated really well, or I get a dangly one that I'm like, crap. I used a 1/4 inch bit instead of a 7/32, so now there's wiggle room. Um, so you still slam full of epoxy resin and then let it dry, slam it down, and then it's a nice tight fit. But that's just me trying to like solidify and cover up a mistake I made. It's like, okay, while this still will form, it's not perfect structural integrity. So I have to just kind of like make it appear to be so. And I say make it appear to be so, not shysting people, but going like, ah, crap. I'm gonna feel bad if it wobbles. So I got to take the wobble out while still maintaining a decently structured sword. Back in the past is likely what they were thinking too. It's like, oh, that looks like shit. I'm going to put pitch down in there. I'm going to fill it full of adhesive. I'm going to put a wooden shim in there and shore that up. While it works, it's just another way to like go like, there's an imperfection. I have to decrease its imperfectionists, imperfectionists.
So I had one of my first blades, Chinese blades, when I was, I think, 14 years old making. I had this giant hollow brass pommel, and I couldn't figure out how to get it on. So I loaded it entirely with, the JB Weld sticks.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So you mush the two sticks together, it's like a clay.
Right. Yep.
It hardens. I use that. And that thing survived for as long.
Right.
I don't know what happened to it lately, but that thing never budged. So,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't do that now, but 14-year-old not really knowing what he's doing. So
Yep.
yeah, it's good times.
I've done the same stuff where you're just like, you can't wrap your head around the problem completely with what tools you have on hand. So you're just like, I guess I'll try this. And if that works, awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, not sure if we helped the conversation there or not.
I think it was a neutral position all the way through. We really kind of slithered through the debate.
Yeah.
Guys, come on, quit fighting. We all love swords, and that's the thing that's going to bring us together.
Very true. That's why we do what we do.
Right.
What do we? So now that your new shop's set up, we got a bunch of blades in the background there. So are you selling anything at the moment that you can put on the page, or are these going out for rentals, or?
No, I've got about 5 swords out for rentals right now with a film company. No, I think all these are already spoken for.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
How many do you have of your left?
Already spoke. Yep, I got my Clooney back. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
She's so pretty. Huh?
How is it?
Oh, even more beautiful than I remember.
Yeah, my collection has expanded greatly.
Yep.
So I really need to get cabinets because it's just a mess right now. So I don't even.
You gotta display them.
Yeah. So this is the office. I got some in the bedroom.
You got a ton of those Chad makes hidden rack, weapon rack.
Yep. Yeah. The problem. So I want to use those in the cabinets. So I don't want to drill holes in the wall just yet.
Oh, true.
So yeah, the plan is to use those inside of a glass cabinet. Because my other problem I have, this is probably, I don't think it's a Florida issue, but for some reason this house just it dusts like crazy. I have to dust all the time, and so I need to get like a glass enclosed stuff for the blades so they don't get dusty. But yeah, I'll use the magnets in the cabinet and LED lighting, getting everything else set up.
Oh yeah, that'd look hot.
Yeah, so
Some LED backlighting on the sword piece, or even like lit up from the bottom. Oh
yeah, I think about doing like, you know, in the museum sometimes they'll put like mirrors either on the bottom or like
sure.
on the back, and then they'll shine light on them and just makes them glow.
Yeah, yep.
Thinking about trying something like that. But yeah, I'm excited to get started. It's going to be expensive though. My buddy who does the cabinetry, like specialty cabinetry work, I told him what I wanted to do. He's like, "Well, you might want to scale back there," so because it's a lot. So I may not be able to afford everything I was thinking of, but at least I'll get something going.
Not with how many swords you're buying, you won't. You won't be able to afford ramen noodles.
I know. So I'm going to have a cabinet of film blades that inspired me, and then a cabinet of my favorite maker blades that inspired me. So yeah, those are kind of my two big categories. So
yeah,
I think it'll be good.
So, oh yeah.
Eventually I don't know if they're going to be behind me and all that'll be blown out, because that might move to the other side that you can't see.
Yeah.
I might do that. I'm not sure yet. So, or they might.
I need to do a very similar thing. I need to do wall racks for all my swords to display them properly instead of just old wooden rack in the background.
All right. So do you have any events? Are you going to be able to do any of the sword classes with Phil, or the cutting classes or anything?
Yep. I'm actually planning on showing up this Saturday at one of his cutting classes. I think that's going to be fun.
Man, I wish I could. So.
Oh, you're gonna have to come out, man. Got a spare bedroom now. You can. We can blow you up a couple water balloons, make you feel right at home.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll be out there. Our travel for work has been kind of pulled back, so we can't travel as much. But yeah, my normal job, for those of you who are watching, my normal job in aerospace also has a facility right up by where he's at now. So I'm hoping to get out there a few times.
I think what we'll probably do is for Combat Con, fly to Arizona and then just ride out with me.
Is that how far are you from?
4 hours from Vegas.
Okay. Before we were
6
8 hours? 6.
6.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Not too bad at all. Granted, that's more for me than for you. Say what?
We won't pass the ice cream place anymore, though.
We never got to stop at the creamery. Yeah.
Wait, will we pass Beaver again, or no?
Yeah, that was right after the creamery is right after Beaver.
Yeah.
It's weird how religious of a state Utah is, but they have a Fillmore, Beaver, and creamery right after. Someone was like,
yeah. Exactly.
So, or it's like the guy that invented the words asscock. He didn't mean them to mean that. It's just like hundreds of years later, someone's like, this is what that means. And his ancestors are like, no, wait, that's not what we meant.
Right.
Yeah, maybe that's what,
But you won't pass those because you're coming from the other direction now, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. We wouldn't pass those unless we were going to Utah now.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you were interested, it is 6.5 hours to the creamery from here.
And then you come back down to go back to Vegas.
Yeah. It would definitely not be for the best to do that.
Nope. We'll just have to find another ice cream place.
Yep. Oh yeah. Arizona's packed full of delicious food choices. There, yeah. We'll have the pick of the litter out here, milkshake wise.
Aren't you close to that brewery we went to, that big one?
What was it called again?
I don't remember. Phil would know. He's the one who sent
Two Peaks, Twin Peak, Two Peaks,
something like that. Yeah, it was good. Whatever.
I always say Two Peaks, and then someone corrects me.
Yeah, I don't remember. Twin.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it was good. So, are you close by there, though, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm probably like 20, 30 minutes from anything I want.
Yeah, that's the nice thing with Phoenix is, you're pretty close to everything there.
I think it's called, no, it's not Two Peaks. That's a hiking destination. Ooh, that looks fun, though.
That's the other thing, too. So some of our guys, not at Deer Valley, but in the other location by the airport. I think it's by the airport, but they'll take a break and go hike up a mountain. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Two Peaks is right next to Fat Man's Pass. Fat Man's Pass trailhead. Yep.
Awesome.
So we can try some stuff out while you're here.
Oh, and I don't know if you know this yet, but in Scottsdale, there's a really cool natural history museum that has a ton of dinosaur stuff.
Whoa.
And, yeah, like skeletons and stuff. And there's a giant iron meteorite that's massive, right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like one of the central exhibits. It's pretty cool to see that.
So it's still some chunks off on it and start making swords out of it.
Right. Or use it as an anvil. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like 3 or 4 foot diameter. It's
Oh wow! Holy crap!
Yeah. Solid iron. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool things to see out here, and unlike Utah, they're not closed 6 months out of the year.
Yeah. Oh, have you seen? Have you gone and seen Dungeons and Dragons yet?
Nope.
Oh, I recommend it, man. It was good.
I've heard it's great. I've heard from more people that it was great than it was terrible.
The shooting sword wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Oh, it's got to be terrible. There's no way that shooting sword is any kind of good.
So that character, it makes sense for that character, and it's funny. So it's good. Yeah.
I'll take a chance. I'll watch it. It looks like a fun popcorn movie, regardless.
Definitely was.
There's a couple good movies coming out. There's the Renfield one with Nicolas Cage as Dracula. There's The Covenant. There's just tons of good movies in theaters right now.
Awesome. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think we probably call it there. We're almost at an hour.
Yeah.
Also, for you guys watching, so on our channel, we have our the Sword Talk podcast, but we also have a couple other video series that I've kind of been haven't been able to get to lately. But we have an Oakshot topology that I need to finish up. And then we're going to start, hopefully, some sword reviews, which I think will be fun. And I'm missing, what am I missing? There's another thing on our page, I can't remember what it is. But we have other videos and other types of things to talk about. And hopefully we'll expand on that in the future. So if you have anything you want us to talk about, either on Sword Talk, or if you want to come on as a guest, or you want us to cover a certain topic, let us know. And we also respond, or at least I do, respond to all the comments. Sometimes or maybe look at them and not respond to
I just seriously found out that these are on YouTube like 2 days ago. Like I thought this was just me and you hanging out and talking, and Colton would join sometimes, but it turns out this is a whole thing on YouTube. There's a bunch of episodes and everything.
Yeah, we have tens of viewers. Yep.
I can count all of them on 1 foot. Awesome. They're good people. I like it. It's okay. Like if we had tens of thousands of viewers, awesome. If we had hundreds of thousands, we'd probably get paid more to do that than we would work our actual jobs. But with like 5 to 10 people that actually watch, like the last Sword Talk we did, I said something that really keyed in with Sean, and then Sean messaged me right away. Dude, that thing you said, that is so true. Ha ha ha. Then we had a good little chat about it. And I like that. I like connecting with people. And
tighter knit communities are more fun, I think, because you know everybody and you get to talk, and it's a big open communication. So
right, totally.
Yep. So alrighty. Well, I think we'll call it a night there. And thanks for coming on, Josh. I know you're at your new place and you're still getting set in there.
Oh,
yeah.
Hole.
Nothing's came out of the hole yet, so that's good.
You'd tell me though, right? Like,
yeah, no, I wouldn't. Yep. Awesome. Oh, did you bring your cat with you, by the way?
My what?
Is your cat still with you? Did you bring the cat?
The cat? No. Oh no, she's at the old place.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, she's coming down as well.
Okay, so I was gonna say, just leave her there.
Yeah. She'll No, my allergies have actually been better. I actually started doing immunotherapy, and because it turns out, like, I don't know, a few years ago, I was dying. And this sounds like it's going to be a commercial. This is like where it cuts to like, and that's why Sterling Armory recommends this. I was dying of allergies and everything. I was miserable. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. And then I went and did one of those allergy tests, and they stabbed me in the back, just like the Romans do, with like every allergen known to man. And it turns out I'm allergic to like 95% of the world now. And for some reason, at 40, at mid 30s, now 40s, my body's just like, you've been enjoying life. It's time to like hate milk, bread, tomatoes, anything citric acid, cats, any animals, dogs, horses, everything, grass, trees. You're all allergic to it. So I started doing immunotherapy, and then cat food that actually turns the cat like, what you call it? I don't know, hypoallergenic, and through those combinations, I've actually been able to like clear up my breathing quite a bit and enjoy my life for once. So yeah. So that's good news. I still like if I touch a cat or anything and just go, I'll die. Like my neck gets all big, my eyes like turn to scratch eyes. They're all tiny and shut and painful, and I like this nasal drips. This one's clogged, but I still can't breathe. And I look dead except for like every couple seconds I go, and then just kind of like suck in an air bubble. And
I've seen you that way before.
It used to be your house all the time. I would stay in the garage because I was less allergic to black mold and nonstop metal dust than I was the cat dander that was just in your kitchen.
Yeah, we had 3 cats in that house. That's the old house, not this current one.
Yep, and every cat wants a piece of me. They're like, look at this big man cat. He's gonna pat us.
Yep.
Oh God, I'm gonna die.
I'm guessing the dry Arizona air helps with that too, right?
Yeah. It helps 2 things. One, my allergies, and it helps the nosebleeds happen more. So yeah.
That sucks.
I went into a Bank of America with like a clog of white toilet paper that was red, and my mustache was red from just a nosebleed while I was in the. And even though I washed it all out, there were still like crusts of blood all around my mouth. I looked like a cannibal.
Wow. Yeah, I guess I was gonna say I've only been in Phoenix. I guess the longest I've been in Phoenix was when we were there. So I don't think I was there long enough to feel the effects.
Yeah. It's always my left nostril, and I don't know why. Like we went to like when Phil came out and helped me move, I got a nosebleed at the Thai restaurant we went to. And I came back to the table with like the little clog in there, and I was like, oh, I just had a nosebleed. And then like a couple minutes later in the conversation, Phil's like, you got something there. And I was like, oh, I know. it's the bloody cloth. You'll remember when I talk to you and it shoots out at you at 20 miles an hour and you try and block it.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man threw a red web on you. This guy.
Awesome.
But yeah. So yeah, it's cool. I don't get tired, and I just end up eating the blood, and that's cool. You know, that's trendy.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Do we do outros? I don't think. Do we? I don't know.
Yeah, we used to. We used to say, by the way, I'm Josh Warbear. You can find me on Instagram at Warbear_Armory, or on Facebook at Joshua Von Warbear, or you can email me at warbear@SterlingArmory. I have never checked that email.
So we didn't do it today. Okay, I couldn't remember if we did it or not. So yeah, I'm Chris. Chris at Sterling Armory, and I do check that one. But you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff, and various events throughout the U.S. And hopefully some in Europe, which would be pretty cool. At some point soon. So.
If you leave us some comments. If you like what we said, awesome. If you didn't, that sucks. If you argue with us, do it. It'll give me a chance to test out this new AI chat thing I bought. So that's all I would do. If someone really wanted to argue, I would just like hit enter on the chat and manifest whatever the shit the AI thinks I'm out about swords.
Right.
You know, you'd be
All right.
like, "There's too much space in the crossguard," and my reply would be like, "Did you know a platypus's butt is bulletproof?" And that's just AI. It doesn't know what it's
Yeah,
going to say. It's AI.
that's true. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and I'm not sure. So our next one might be one of my Oakshot topology ones if I can finish that, and then hopefully we'll also have Colton and hopefully Thomas back on at some point.
Yeah, I miss Thomas. I miss
Yeah,
Thomas and Chet.
yeah. I haven't heard from Chet in a while.
Those pack of bastards.
They're all busy. I mean, we all have
It's life. Yeah, I get
families
it.
and lives. So, alrighty. Well, thanks guys again, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.